I am 75 years old now. Looking at the numbers, I know I'm walking through the final chapters of my life. And almost every single time I run into an old friend, or a neighbor at the grocery store, or when my daughter stops by for a visit, they look at me with those soft, concerned eyes and ask the same gentle question. Tom, don't you ever feel lonely? Don't you want to find a partner? That big house must feel so empty with just you in it. I understand why they ask. From the time we're young, society teaches us that a man without a woman by his side, especially in old age, is somehow incomplete. That real happiness at the end of life means having someone to share your coffee with every morning, someone to talk to about your day. But today, I'm going to tell you a truth that most people don't want to hear at family dinners or neighborhood gatherings. After everything I've been through, I have never felt more peaceful, more content, or more authentically myself than I do right now, living alone. And the surprising part, I only became completely sure of this after going on just 3 dates. My wife, Elizabeth, passed away 25 years ago, when I was exactly 50 years old. It was a terrible car accident on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. One phone call changed everything. The woman who had been my best friend and partner for 28 years was suddenly gone. The years that followed were some of the darkest of my life. Our 2-story house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, felt enormous and hollow. I would come home from work and just sit on the sofa for hours, staring at our wedding photo on the wall. The silence in the house was so heavy, it felt like it had weight. Many nights, I couldn't sleep. I kept her favorite blanket on the bed, even though she would never use it again. As a mechanical engineer who had spent 30 years designing systems for heavy machinery, I eventually did what I knew best. I started creating a new system for my life. Slowly, carefully, and with great intention. I began waking up every morning at 5:30. I would brew a strong pot of black coffee, walk out onto the back porch, and sit there watching the sun rise behind the tall pine trees. No television, no radio, no phone notifications, just the sound of the wind moving through the trees and the warm steam rising from my mug. That quiet morning ritual became my anchor. I converted the garage into a proper woodworking shop. There, I spent hours building things with my hands: solid oak dining tables, bookshelves, wooden chests, and even garden benches. There was something deeply satisfying about taking raw wood and turning it into something useful and beautiful. In the afternoons, I worked in my small garden, growing vegetables and flowers. Some days, I would simply sit in my study, reading history books or technical journals I never had time for when I was still working. By the time I reached 72, something had quietly shifted inside me. I wasn't just coping anymore. I was genuinely content. My days felt calm, purposeful, and completely my own. I had finally made peace with my life, as it was. But the people who loved me couldn't see it that way. My daughter Emily worried constantly. She would say, "Dad, I hate the thought of you being alone in that big house. You deserve companionship. You're still young enough to find someone." My neighbors were even more persistent. They kept introducing me to widowed ladies they thought would be perfect for me. After hearing it week after week, I started doubting myself. Maybe they were right. maybe my peaceful life, was actually just loneliness in disguise. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to go on a few dates. I only went on 3. The first date was with Susan, a kind 69-year-old retired teacher. We had a nice dinner. She was warm, talked easily, and asked many questions about my life. It wasn't unpleasant, but I already felt a quiet discomfort. The second date was with Patricia. She was energetic and full of ideas. We walked in a beautiful park and had coffee afterward. She spoke excitedly about future trips, dancing classes, and how we should make the most of the time we have left. I smiled and nodded, but inside, I felt my energy draining. The third date was with Karen. She was lively, loved traveling, and had a very strong personality. Within the first 40 minutes, she was already planning summer cruises, suggesting how I should redecorate my living room to make it brighter and more modern, and texting me photos, even while we were sitting across the table from each other. And right there, in the middle of that third date, it hit me like a clear, quiet realization. I didn't want any of it. I didn't want cruises. I didn't want my quiet house to be filled with constant noise and activity. I didn't want to explain why I loved waking up early in silence. I didn't want to live on someone else's schedule or energy level. After 25 years of learning to live with myself, as a man, as an engineer, and as a widower, I had genuinely fallen in love with the peaceful life I had carefully built. I loved my morning coffee on the porch. I loved the smell of fresh-cut wood in my shop. I loved being able to spend an entire day without speaking, if I didn't feel like it. I loved being the master of my own time. After that third date, I kindly and clearly ended contact with all 3 women. I told them the truth. I had discovered that I was truly happy living alone, and I no longer wanted to change that. My daughter was disappointed at first. She worried I was giving up. But over time, she saw that her father was not sad or lonely. I was actually at peace. It's been more than 2 years since those 3 dates. I haven't gone on another one, and I have no plans to. These days, my life is simple, but rich. I still rise at 5:30, still enjoy my coffee with the sunrise, still create things with my hands in the wood shop, and still treasure the quiet moments that belong only to me. My house carries the comforting scent of pine wood, coffee, and a little machine oil, the honest smell of my own life. I've come to understand a deep truth. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is a painful emptiness. Solitude, when freely chosen, can be a beautiful fullness. At 75 years of age, I am not lonely. I am whole. And perhaps the most surprising discovery of all is this: I am actually very good company for myself. So if you're a man getting older, and the world keeps pressuring you to find someone so you won't be alone, I want to gently say this to you. You have my permission to choose peace instead. You have my permission to love the quiet life you've built. You have my permission to say, no, thank you, without feeling guilty. Don't let the fear of dying alone force you to live a life that slowly kills your spirit while you're still breathing. Reclaim your mornings. Reclaim your silence. Reclaim your peace. Because in the end, that inner peace is the only thing we truly get to keep until our very last breath.